Boy, 2016 sure feels like a long time ago, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to believe that only 5 years have passed since the internet discourse was dominated by a female-led reboot of Ghostbusters. In retrospect, it really does feel surreal. You had bigoted yahoos arguing with people because women, people who wanted to give the film a decent chance, people who had valid concerns, people who were upset about not getting a Ghostbusters 3, and people who were confused about why Ghostbusters was so important.
You have to remember that to many people, Ghostbusters is just a fondly remembered couple of comedies from the 1980s. But there's also a large segment that got really into Ghostbusters not through any of the movies, but rather the animated series.
Come on, guys, let's go Ghostbusters!
Ha ha ha.
I tend to fall in the latter category, being that I was only 3 years old in 1984 and thus didn't see the first movie until 1988, so I was more familiar with the real Ghostbusters animated series. However, to anyone thought that we would ever be getting anything from that series, like a live-action version of The Boogeyman or Sawin, or a live-action version of Extreme Ghostbusters, I have a question. Did you not see Ghostbusters 2?
Now look, I like Ghostbusters 2. It's a perfectly cromulent film, but the only real bit of crossover from the animated series was the idea of Slimer kinda being part of the team, and well, even that just got relegated to a subplot, which was then almost entirely edited out of the film, except for a 2-second clip. So, what I'm basically getting at is they had their chance and blew it, so why would they suddenly start now?
Anyway, back to Ghostbusters 2016, or Ghostbusters Answer the Call, as it's technically titled. It would come out amongst a swirl of controversy, and it was fine. I reviewed it when it came out and I gave it a solid B, and I still stand by that review. The only real problems with the film being that the villain's motivations are vague or underwritten, and the characters of Aaron Gilbert and Abby York, played by Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy respectively, being written as naive and innocent in the vein of Dan Aykroyd's Ray Stantz, but both actresses wanted to play more cynical and sarcastic like Bill Murray's Peter Venkman. Overall, though, I felt the chemistry between the cast, particularly the performances of Kate McKinnon as Gillian Holtzman and Leslie Jones as Patty Tolan, really did help carry the film pretty well, even through some of the dodgier bits.
In the end, the film was almost entirely subsumed by the discourse, and, well, it didn't exactly bomb at the box office. It really wasn't much of a hit either. It wasn't aided by the fact that there were laws restricting the cultural depictions of ghosts in China, which meant it couldn't tap into that very lucrative market. And in the end, after all of the debating and arguing and name-calling and screaming and everything, it just kind of felt a little pointless.
While in recent years, the film has gotten a critical reevaluation and even garnered a decent following, in particular being a very popular Halloween costume, Sony has decided to move on with a new in-canon film called Ghostbusters Afterlife, the existence of which has disappointed the daughter of one of my contemporaries from the Comic Geek Speak forums who wants to know what happened to Abby and Holtzman. You know, her Ghostbusters. Anyway, Afterlife follows the grandchildren of the late Harold Ramis' character Egon Spengler as they take on paranormal activity in their small Oklahoman town. I wonder where they got that idea from.
Still, the 2016 Ghostbusters haven't vanished completely thanks to IDW Publishing, who in 2016 and early 2017 published a miniseries seeing the team cross over with their male counterparts. That was followed the next year by another 5-issue miniseries of the team's solo adventures. And today we're looking at that 5-issue miniseries. This is Ghostbusters Answer the Call.
The Ghostbusters are investigating a supposedly haunted brownstone, and Holtzman is eager to try out a new trap design she's taken from the group's adventure with the original Ghostbusters.
I'm Spencer. He's Tracy. I'm Carl.
Can't believe I set that joke up twice.
The group encounters the spirit of a Dickensian street urchin and makes quick work of it, though their coordination still needs a little assistance. However, the foursome fail to realize that they left behind a PKA meter which suddenly goes berserk before exploding. Everyone heads back to the firehouse headquarters and prepares to order Chinese food, as long as dopey-headed secretary Kevin can get their order right. Patty is still on edge from the experience at the brownstone and looks up some history on the building. It turns out the building was owned by a Dr. Kruger who would take children off the street and use them in occult rituals. When Kruger died, the city of New York sealed the building up until just recently. It's then that Abby enters the room, completely possessed by Krieger's ghost.
Again? Really?
The Ghostbusters are too far away from the proton packs to help. It wouldn't really be a safe idea, considering Abby is involved. However, Holtzman has a new toy up her sleeve in the form of the Ghost Zamboni. The revamped ice cleaner functions as a large ghost trap. It siphons Krieger's spirit away from Abby, but the Doctor is too powerful and breaks away. Kruger reveals that he feeds on the energy of nightmares, and now he has access to the entire population of New York City. He then makes his way to the Empire State Building so he can use it as a giant antenna to siphon the energy from everyone in the city.
Obviously, this Kruger guy's whole backstory is a reference to that classic 80s horror movie franchise known as The Evil Dead.
Soon the news is covering the outbreak of terror. Oddly, though, the Ghostbusters phone is completely silent, mainly because Kevin was so annoyed that he pulled out the cord. The team suits up and races to the Empire State Building. They confront Kruger, who taunts the group with their optimism as he shrugs off a series of proton blasts and attacks. When Erin comes to, she finds herself in an election hall waiting for a speech. Making things worse, she's delivering it to an audience of bees.
I'm sorry, guys, but internet law requires me to do this joke. Bees. My God.
Abby finds herself in the office of the dean for a for-profit online university where she used to work. He mocks her for her belief in the paranormal before turning into a giant sewer clown. Patty finds herself alone in a room. She begins frantically looking for the others, only to be confronted by a barrage of loquacious burlap dolls. Finally, Holtzman is trapped in an office cubicle doing data entry for accounts receivable. The rules tell her to conform, but she escapes into the ladies' room. She attempts to use her ingenuity to try to break free, only for her fingers to completely fall off. In reality, the Ghostbusters are all unconscious on the floor, trapped in their own nightmares. 40 minutes later, the Ghostbusters awaken and go out for a bite to eat.
Yeah.
A despondent Holtzman brings up that Kruger doesn't view the team as a threat and slinks outside. Erin goes out to comfort her teammate and shares her experiences, including the bees. It's that little bit that brings Holtzman out of her funk, remembering that in the end, all fears are just kind of dumb. The group returns to the firehouse to find that Kevin has now cut the phone cord completely because the phone calls returned when he plugged it back in. Holtzman begins working on something to dampen Krieger's power while the others head back to the brownstone to investigate. The trio discovers Kruger's literal nightmare laboratory behind a false wall that Abby smashes with an axe. In the process, they awaken several ghosts that need to be wrangled. Back at the firehouse, Holtzman has finished her work on a device, a machine that will allow the group to share each other's dreams and nightmares. Unfortunately, all it really does so far is make really mean scrambled eggs. Erin and Abby try the device only to hallucinate being attacked by clown bees. Or is it bee clowns? The problem is the nightmares are just too random. If the device is to work properly, the group must focus on a shared memory. The problem there is that they just haven't known each other long enough for that to happen.
Okay, so for those of you who didn't catch the 2016 movie, here's a brief bit of backstory for you. Erin and Abby were childhood friends who often studied the paranormal together, but drifted apart as Erin began pursuing more serious sciences. As for Abby, well, she got a job at for-profit online university where she encountered Jillian Holtzman, and the two began heading up a paranormal research department. It's around this time that Erin returned to the picture and the trio wound up encountering a ghost. While pursuing another ghost in the New York City subway tunnels, the trio encountered Patty Tolan, a transit authority worker and amateur New York City history buff. She wound up joining the team soon after that to help them with their research. As for Kevin, well, he's a wannabe actor the group hired because, well, he's Chris Hemsworth.
Holtzman points out the group needs to focus on something traumatic, like how her first weapon test awoke something in a Catholic chapel and destroyed it, which is weird because Erin and Abby had their first ghost hunt at that same chapel. Not only that, but Patty was also at that chapel as part of a high school dare, and this all took place on the same night, Friday the 13th.
Wait a minute, I thought this was supposed to be a Freddy Krueger knockoff, not Jason Voorhees.
Now with a shared memory to hold their bond, the group gets ready to take down Dr. Krueger, after some more scrambled eggs. They even have enlisted a secret weapon. The group returns to the Empire State Building and blasts Krueger long enough to activate their shared consciousness device when he responds. It takes a few minutes to warm up, temporarily trapping everyone in their nightmares, but soon they are all reunited. Holtzman then manages to stay hidden when Krueger attacks and he gets the jump on him. Unfortunately, it still proves ineffective as Krueger shrugs off another proton attack. It's then the Ghostbusters employ their secret weapon, Kevin! The extra firepower ensnares Krueger long enough for the team to direct him to their new trap, based on the old design. It's then time for a celebration. Kevin wants a car, which isn't a good idea since he can barely drive a motorcycle, and the others want lunch. No eggs, though. They've been eating that too much over the last 24 hours.
And that concludes our look at Ghostbusters Answer the Call. How was it? Well, on the plus side, I do think there's some really good artwork in here that does a great job of capturing the likenesses, which is always a really sticking point in a licensed comic of this nature. So that's always a good plus. Not to mention, I think there's some really good characterization and world building in this. Everyone feels real. I think they actually build themselves and their relationships a lot better. Not to mention, there's really good pacing throughout all of this. There's not really a lot of dead spots that happen or anything of that nature. I do like that a lot. On the downside, it's kind of the recycled plot elements. I mean, Abby gets possessed again. That happened in the movie. They even make a point of that. And again, the character is named Dr. Krueger. I mean, really? and he feeds on nightmares. I mean, I'm all for doing the homage, just, it could be a little bit more creative in the villain name for that. I mean, again, like, you couldn't call him, like, Teddy Creeper or something. I think it would have worked just as well. I mean, if people get what you're talking about, you don't have to use that blatant. And there's kind of a weird point, like, I wish they had said something like maybe Kruger's powers don't work so much during the day when everyone's awake. Just something like that, because it seems like there's a long time that passes in between these battles. Like, it's supposed to be like 24 hours, but still, it feels a little drawn out, if you catch my drift. I mean, it doesn't have much to do with the pacing there. It's like, again, wow, a lot seemed to happen in that 24-hour span. And there's one last problem, and it's kind of a big one. This is out of print. And to the best of my research, IDW does not appear to have the Ghostbusters license anymore. So this thing might not be available. In fact, when I ordered this from Amazon, there were only 3 copies left, and the thing is not on Comixology. So, yeah. Again, this might be kind of hard. Maybe it'll be a little more easy to find. It's not terribly old. It's only a couple of years old. So, again, and I think it only just recently left Comixology, like within the last month. So, again, maybe it might be a little easier to find if you bargain bin dive or you get to a local comic shop. So it might not be too terribly hard to find, but if you're watching this in the future, you could be out of luck. It does provide a sticking point in me trying to give this a full recommendation, even at, say, a B level. I unfortunately have to give Ghostbusters Answer the Call a C. It's not that it's really bad. Again, it's just that availability thing really drops it way down in my book. I try to try to recommend things that, again, people can readily get, for lack of a better term. So yeah, that's why I'm giving it a C. And with that, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
Remember, you can help support my channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcatproductions. There, you can request a trade to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. Also, remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.